Welcome to Prioritize Your Life and PrioritizeYourLife.com. I have Adam and Holly Anderson back with me today because I knew they had more stories, and I think this time they've swapped seats because Holly's got the party seat today.
This is my story.
Literally, because we found out that when you sit in it, the chair makes weird noises. So,
I'm not going to show you.
You don't have to demo it. That's okay. That might take away from the feeling of the story. So thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you for having us back here again.
Yeah.
As we were telling the other story, I couldn't help think about this story and how much I wanted to share it. This is a story that it's just always on my mind because it's about one of my children. And, you know, as a mom of 5 kids, it's kind of, you can be consumed by your children. And they are my life. They're the light of my life. And we had an interesting experience with one of our little boys. He was, this was years ago. He's 9 now. And this was when he was 2. And I had just given birth to our little girl, our third. And I remember just being really confused about why my little boy was sick. He was 2 and he was so sick, and we would just go to the hospital again and again, go to the doctors again and again, and they just kept saying, "Oh, he'll grow out of it. Oh, this is normal." And I kept hearing that, and I knew it was wrong. But I didn't know, I mean, I don't have a medical degree. I didn't know what was wrong with my son. How do you even describe his symptoms? Help me out here. It was hard.
So, I mean, well, even when he was a little kid, little baby, you'd hear him at night and he would just start, because we had him in the crib even with us, and you'd hear him just be in pain, just start crying, and you could tell his just stomach was hurting, and just crying always with it. At night he wouldn't sleep for more than a couple hours, and he'd be up crying, and
he would grab his tummy and try to push on it, and his tummy was really distended and really, it was like a basketball. It was super hard.
Super hard.
I remember one of your friends came over and picked up our kid, and he was just gave me the weirdest look, what is wrong with your child? And everyone just kind of joked about oh, he's got some muscle, he's gonna be a football player. But one time that really scared me was I was giving him a bath, and he stood up, and I remember just realizing, you are losing so much weight, and yet you have this tummy that's sticking out, that's as hard as a rock, and that's not normal. and so we tried different things that the doctors had recommended, and nothing was working. And then one time I just got on the phone, and I was scheduling another appointment with the doctor, and I said, "Hey, we tried doing this and that, like you told us to, for 2 weeks, and didn't work." And I told the lady on the phone, "Hey, my child, by the way, hasn't had a bowel movement in about 10 days. And she said, "What? You need to take him to the ER right now." And I was a young mother. I was like, "Are you sure? Really?" I'm I'm scheduling this, so the doctor can see him again and figure out, hopefully, what's wrong with him. And she said, "No, take him to the ER right now." So we did that, and that was hard enough because we lived in a small town in Idaho. And so just, having 2 little boys and a baby, and then going to the ER and calling his mom and trying to just get that all figured out. We spent the whole night in the ER with our son. And they were just doing enemas, pretty much torturing him. And we still had no answer. And then I remember you decided to fast. Because we were just what can we do? Is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, because they sent us home, right, after all those enemas, and finally got so much out, which was just so terrible.
It was ridiculous, yeah.
And that was actually because we were in the hospital in that little town, and then we went to a little bigger town, right?
Yeah, we went to 2 different ERs that night.
2 different ERs that night.
Yeah, they didn't have answers, so they said, "We're going to send you home, and you need to call Primary and Children's Hospital." That hospital is a 6-hour drive away from our home. So that's a big deal. That's a big commitment. Call them and just sign up for a pediatric GI, and it's about 6-month waiting list.
Oh.
And that really hurt because here I have a really sick child, and we're going from hospital to hospital, getting no answers, and now I have to wait 6 months. And we went back and, we didn't go home. We went to your parents' house. And I remember my mother-in-law was like, "You look tired. You should take a nap." And I said, "Thank you." So she watched the kids while I took a nap. And and this is my story. This is where it really begins. This was the miracle that happened. When I took a nap at my in-laws' house, I had a dream. And the dream was that I was sitting at a desk at Primary Children's Hospital, and there was a person on the other side of the desk, and they were telling me information about my son. And I remember just sitting there listening, and the person on the other side of the desk said, "Okay, so we found out why your son is so sick." And I said, "Really? Okay, what's the answer?" And he said, "Well, it's because he can't eat gluten. He's gluten intolerant." And that was the answer. Just simple, dietary, can't have gluten. And my response was very bitter. Actually, in my dream, I said, "You've got to be kidding me. That's it? It's that simple?" And we had to take test after test, and you torture my child, and had to, of course, this was a dream, and hopefully in real life I wouldn't react this way too professional, but in my dream I was very upset that it was such a simple answer. And in my dream, he had gone through all these tests, and I mean, he's a little 2-year-old. Did he really have to go through that? And I remember getting up from the seat and being upset with God. And I remember praying in my dream. Okay, this is my dream. I remember praying, "Heavenly Father, you could have just told me this simple answer before we got here. You could have told me this. Why didn't you?" And then I woke up. And I woke up and I sat up on my mother-in-law's couch, and I thought, he just did. God just answered my future prayer. And he wanted me to know that. And he just told me what was wrong with my son, and that he was gluten intolerant. And I was just so overwhelmed and filled with gratitude. And I remember just sitting there just going, "I know what's wrong with our son. I know what's wrong." And my mother-in-law was in the kitchen, and she said, "What's the matter, Holly? What's the matter?" I said, I know what's wrong with him." And she said, "What?" I said, "It's gluten. He can't eat gluten." And then she said, "What's gluten?" And I said, "I don't know, but we're going to find out, and he's not going to have it anymore in his diet."
This was back before it was like trendy.
Yes, yeah. Now, it was not cool back then.
Yeah.
Right. And so we took gluten out of his diet, and after 1 month, we saw an improvement. And then after 2 more months, so 3 months of no gluten, he completely transformed to a different child. I mean, we're talking not only was he healthy and gaining weight, but his behavior changed too.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't know why, like, some children have to go through more and some children don't get an answer, and that's not fair. And we have other children that have been through other things. I mean, that's a different video, but but what I do know is important is that we recognize his hand in our life when he does come and give us that answer. I think that's really important. And I think that's the reason why I wanted to just share this experience, is because I felt like I was ungrateful if I didn't. So
the dream itself too, I find so fascinating that it wasn't even just like, this is what's wrong, but all of that, like, that you had this element of like you saying a prayer in your dream and like being angry and why haven't you told me? Did you pull any like specific messages out of that of like, I maybe need to be careful about not being bitter when I don't get answers? Maybe you were hinting at that anyway. That was, what a fascinating dream.
That's a lesson I probably should learn. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I probably should remember not to so quickly get mad at God, and to remember that, hey, he knows your every thought, your every need, and he's going to be with you even when things are super hard. You know, even when I don't get that answer, even when I don't get what I'm praying for and what my husband's fasting for. And so, yeah, that's a good lesson.
Yeah, because some things take a lot longer time. I mean, we have circumstances right now with, you know, one child with autism and different things where, you know, we haven't had that fast, immediate answer. It's still not answered, right? And it's still hard, you know. He's
still nonverbal, and he still can't tell us how he feels, and we're still fighting that battle. And he's almost 5 years old, and it's hard. Every day is hard. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one. It's tough, but it's so reassuring to know that God is there and that He cares, and that He knows what you're going through, and He cares. And I think it's important to remember those experiences where you have seen His hand in your life, and keep that with you during the times where you feel like He's silent, because there's always a reason, even though we don't know what it is.
That's the next video, is going to be his story of healing and stuff.
Yeah, so we haven't gotten there yet. We're still fighting that battle right now. So, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you. Yeah, there's some incredible work out there. I'll even put some links in the video about, because it's a common question, right? Like, why does suffering exist, and how could God exist if there's just some people that it seems like they're meant to suffer their entire life. It's like all they do is suffer. I have a family member that I look at her, I'm just like, oh, I almost can't even bear what you have to deal with all the time. And I'm not going to try and represent any of the amazing work that's out there, but if you are suffering and you're trying to understand and cope with that idea of how could God exist in this world of suffering, I'd highly recommend looking into some of those resources. And thank you so much for sharing this personal story. Sometimes I know some of these things are really hard to share when it's involving these personal things with you and your family, but I know it's going to help someone out there. So thank you again.
Yep.
Until the next one, maybe.
Yeah.